Polls indicate that half of Canadians disapprove of Trudeau's government's handling of the Afghanistan evacuations, while others say Trudeau's betrayal of the Afghan people. But what does it really cost Canada in terms of money and manpower? This is the Great White North Report. Okay, everybody knows that the Taliban have retaken Afghanistan, more or less, and that reprisals are underway. Any Afghanistan person that gave so much as a cup of water to a Canadian soldier or citizen is in danger now, because the Taliban will retaliate after being kicked out of power for 20 years, and they're back now in full force. And there are going to be a lot of informants and squealers. People trying to save their own skin are going to squeal on their little neighbors and turn them in. And the Afghanistan, it'll be pretty bloody. Women's rights and the rights of the LGBT are going to be gone out the wayside. And Canada's going to take in 20,000 refugees as a result of this. Now, the federal government began evacuating Canadians and former Afghan allies on August 8th. And rescue flights were halted for 4 days after the Taliban took control of the capital city on August 15th. The same day Mr. Trudeau called the snap election. So that doesn't look good. He calls the snap election at the same time flights to Kabul were canceled. Why did he cancel the flights to Kabul? Because we can't defend the flights coming in and out. We don't have an air force there. We have no air capability to defend, or ground troops to defend people escaping. And the Taliban have tightened their noose around the Kabul airport. The United States has the power, but they pulled out August 31st. So roughly 1,200 Canadian nationals and permanent residents and their family members remain in Afghanistan. The government is advising them to stay in hiding while diplomats negotiate with the Taliban for their safe exit from the country. About 4,300 Afghan nationals who either worked for Canada or have family members who did so are waiting to get out of Afghanistan once Kabul airport is reopened to civilian aircraft. Good luck for them. A lot of Afghanis who helped Canada also took off for Iran and Pakistan. Now they have to re-enter their country to try and get an exit visa. So we definitely failed the Afghan people that helped us. But then again, we haven't militarily been there since 2014. But I think the failure of Afghanistan falls on their own people. They know what the Taliban is like, and they should by their own government and military at the time to help out and stop the Taliban from taking over. So it was Trudeau's betrayal of the Afghan people. We know this crisis was going to come towards us. Like, we can't stay there forever. The United States has wasted enough, $1 trillion staying there. We have no business being there anymore. We did what we could, and the people are going to suffer in Afghanistan. But again, it's not our fault. We tried. It's up to the Afghan people to come in and do what they can. But when you negotiate with a far-right religious extremist group like the Taliban, who practice taqiyya in order to get what they wanted in the negotiations, you know they're not going to be sincere. The Taliban will lie. They will use taqiyya, which is part of Islam, to lie to us, the kafir, in order to get what they want. Because it's okay, according to their own religion, to lie to non-believers. So it's supposed to be only if your life is in danger. Well, their life is in danger. They might have been sticking their heads out, so they don't know that. The thing I don't like is the fact that Pakistan knowingly harbored the Taliban in their own borders, and the Chinese also supported them with military equipment. Just like the United States did the same thing when the Russians were in. The Soviet Union had invaded Afghanistan. The United States gave aid to the Mujahideen to fight the Soviets. The Chinese and the Pakistanis were doing the same thing, supporting the Taliban to fight the United States and NATO allies. The United States, we were giving so much money to Pakistan in foreign aid to help combat Al-Qaeda and the Taliban in their own country. They were getting rich from it. So knowing that they've been abandoned by their biggest allies, the Afghan army collapsed and their government collapsed. Their president fled. Once the president flees, you know it's over. The army they just gave up. Took off their uniforms and tried to blend into the civilian population or headed for the hills. Pakistan is not going to allow any more Afghan refugees over their borders. India is probably the same way, and China definitely won't allow them through. Iran will be the next logical step. That's where most Afghan refugees will head unless they have money or connections to get overseas. So we're going to be taking 20,000 Afghan refugees. Mostly women's rights activists, human rights activists, LGBTQ, and anyone who helped our military. But did Trudeau fail the Afghans? No. In their time of need, no. The Afghans failed themselves. We gave them 20 years of our time. I'm sorry, it's the ugly truth. We gave Afghanistan 20 years of our time to try and help them pull themselves out of the dark ages. We built roads, we built schools, infrastructure projects. We built dams. We sent our troops over to help fight the Taliban insurgents. And it cost us a lot. Our last troops left in Afghanistan in March 2014. 2001 to 2014 we were involved, 13 years. So more than 40,000 members of the Canadian Armed Forces served in Afghanistan as part of the regular forces and the reserves. I had an ex-girlfriend who went into the militia. She was sent to Afghanistan in their supply depot. We lost 165 Canadians died during the war in Afghanistan, of which 7 were civilians, and more than 2,000 members of the Canadian Armed Forces were wounded or injured during the war. I once worked at a factory that made light armor vehicles for the U.S. Marine Corps and also for the war in Afghanistan. We made the armor, and it was designed specifically for roadside bombs, the IEDs that they plant on the roadsides. We made protection against that. And it actually worked really well. Now, I know more Canadians have died of suicide because of the post-traumatic stress. But that's what it cost us in terms of human casualties. We never really had any large number of troops. We had an infantry battle group of approximately 1,200 troops in Kandahar, and they fought against the Al-Qaeda Taliban forces and provided protection for humanitarian operations and for Afghanistan's new interim government. We even sent some warships to the Arabian Sea, but that was pretty boring for them. Not much happened. But eventually we brought in 2,000 infantry soldiers at different times, armored vehicles, tanks, artillery, and other support vehicles, and a field hospital. Now what does that get us? Well, we spend a lot of money just bringing our military over there. It's not cheap. And we rotated troops in and out on tours of duty. But you gotta remember what we get from this is experience. Battle experience for our military, which is very valuable. Something you can't get by practicing or drilling. Battle experience is 10 times more effective than practice on a field. So that is the one positive that came out of all this. Volunteers from police forces were sent over to train, and soldiers help train the National Army and the Afghan National Police. So it's not like these guys haven't had training. We've trained them to fight how we fight. But they also should have been trained to fight how the Taliban fight, from behind rocks and stuff. Hit and run tactics. But this is what gets me. Pakistan's military and intelligence services were recruiting, training, funding, and providing safe haven for Taliban insurgency, as well as hiding the remaining Al-Qaeda leadership. That's why they found Osama bin Laden. And this is what we should have been doing. We should have cut off all foreign aid to Pakistan and not take any Pakistani immigrants into Canada. Cut that little pipeline off. Like, seriously, we are so stupid when it comes to this stuff. We knew that Pakistan was doing this, but we continued to give them money too. And we weren't willing to fight across the border into Pakistan, a supposed ally. They were supposed to be our allies. But in the end, they supported the Taliban because they found it expedient. Same with the Chinese. The Chinese did not want a Western power on their doorstep, just like in Korea. That's why there's no peace in North and South Korea, because China will not allow it. You gotta remember that local officials are corrupt, warlords and tribal leaders exert power in large areas of the country, and the country was in ruins when we arrived. So Canada spent $2.2 billion on development assistance from 2001 to 2014. That's a lot of money. We could build a couple of ships with that. Some of it went to food, education, and basic services to communities. In other cases, Canada ran polio vaccinations and other health programs, which is nice. That's good. Helped in rebuilding of dams, roads, schools, and other infrastructure that now the Taliban are going to use. Government support, prison and police administration and training, and, we did so much stuff. So we spent approximately $18 billion fighting in Afghanistan and trying to reconstruct the country. That's what we spent, roughly. $18 billion, that's a lot of money. That we could have used to rebuild our Air Force and our Navy, which are in desperate need of being rebuilt, as well as our land forces, our tank forces. There's so much we could have used that money for instead of wasting it in Afghanistan. So all our whole mission in Afghanistan was just, all you have to do is go to Canada's International Development Platform, Canada's Foreign Aid, and you can see here that in 2019 we gave $197.4 million to Afghanistan in 2019. I don't know how much we gave in 2020 or 2021. In fact, now that the Taliban have taken over, we got to cut that off. I don't want my hard-earned taxpayer dollars going to the Taliban, because it'll never go to where it's supposed to go. Like, why am I giving so much money? $254 million in 2018, $159 million in 2016. It went as high as $45 million in 2008. That's not our military. That's just foreign aid on its own. Interesting enough, we gave Pakistan 64 million, 161 million in 2015. Like, seriously, come on. They're supporting the Taliban, a proxy war. Yet we were giving them money. We even gave China money. They got 41 million in 2019. Thanks a lot, Trudeau. At least under Harper, they got very little. So the question goes back to what did Canada really gain from the Afghan experience? And the only thing I can realistically think of is we gained valuable combat experience. That's it. Other than that, we gained nothing from Afghanistan. Afghanistan gives us nothing. A bloody waste of time. And it's still going to cost us even after this fiasco, because now we have 20,000 Afghan refugees. And I agree, we got to bring people we helped over. There's no doubt about that. But now we got to resettle them. Help them out with housing, clothing, shelter, schooling, all that stuff. We got to help 20,000 people. Get them, and it's going to cost money for that too. But for the failure that Afghanistan has been, we spent too much money. So any Canadians out there, let me know how you guys felt about Afghanistan. Was it a complete waste of time? Should we get out there? Should we punish Pakistan and China for this as well? I'm all for punishing Pakistan. And let me know in the comment section. Until next time, this has been the Great White North Report.